Mr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary-General of the United Nations. First, thank you very much for taking your time and accept our interview.
It's a great pleasure.
So first, I'll start with your recent trip to Pakistan. You saw the catastrophe by flood in your own very eyes, and you said there that Pakistan has not contributed in a meaningful way to climate change, yet Pakistan is one of the most dramatically impacted countries by climate change. Do you think that industrialized countries, especially developed countries, they have done enough to mitigate the climate change? And what do you expect them to do except making promises?
I would say that almost nobody has done enough. Developed countries have an historical responsibility for the many decades in the past in which they were the main emitters. Today we have emerging economies that are also very relevant big emitters, and we need to guarantee two things. First is that developed countries reduce quickly their emissions, and second, that they cooperate with the emerging economies and other developing countries with finance, with technology, with support, in order to allow them to accelerate also the green transition of their economies that they cannot do by themselves because they came later in the development process. So there is an essential question here. Developed countries have promised $100 billion per year in 2020. We are in 2022, it has not yet happened. And this is just a drop in the ocean. I mean, we also need a stronger engagement of international financial institutions in climate action, in support of developing countries, and leveraging private finance to support developing countries on this. Then look at Pakistan, the devastation that took place. Obviously, you cannot avoid a situation like that, but you can, to a large extent, control it better if you have massively invested in what is called adaptation, in building resilience, in having resilient infrastructure. I mean, just a simple thing. The roads that had been built higher resisted. The roads that have been built at a lower level were destroyed, which means investments need to be made, namely in the countries that are more impacted by climate change, to protect those countries from the impact, the devastating impact of climate change. But that requires investment, and that requires knowledge and technology. And these the developed countries need to provide. There was a promise of $40 billion per year in Glasgow. We'll see whether the promise will be met or not, but it's not enough. Developing countries need about $300 billion per year to invest in adaptation, in resilience, to protect their societies. And then there is loss and damage. Loss and damage is in the Paris Agreement, but until now there has not been a serious discussion and a serious mechanism of action to put it seriously on the table. So I hope that in Cairo, finally, it will be possible to have serious discussions and action on loss and damage.